I'm Peter Spiegel, Brussels Bureau Chief of the Financial Times, here with Josh Chapman of the Financial Times, and we're at the end of 2 days of Summitry here in Brussels in the beautiful Justice Lipsius Summit building here in Brussels. There were really sort of two topics covered by the summiters over the last 2 days. One was sort of the general economic malaise here in Europe and what to do about it. The other one, unexpectedly, was Syria. The British and the French had a push to try to convince their other 27 countries to lift the arms embargo, to be able to arm the rebels in Syria. Josh, you covered that story. Where we stand now on that issue?
Well, the British and the French didn't get very far. They made a real. Prime Minister Cameron and President Hollande really pleaded with other leaders to revisit the arms embargo, but save for Slovenia, which is not really the most influential EU member, they really didn't get much, if any, sympathy. Most member states followed the same line as Germany, which was basically to say, we're willing to talk and discuss this, we're willing to listen to you, but we have a lot of reservations. So they're going to discuss this over the next week leading up to a meeting of foreign ministers in Ireland at the end of the week, and we'll see how far they get, but I think it's an uphill push.
One of the interesting dynamics that we discovered in our reporting was that although the British Prime Minister was pushing very hard for this, the British Commissioner, who is also the High Representative of the EU, Cathy Ashton, was actually very much against. Can you talk a bit about that and what we learned about that issue?
Yeah, indeed. It's a bit of an awkward moment for Cameron. In the meeting today, Cathy Ashton, the High Representative, actually got up and briefed the leaders on her view, and she was very negative and very opposed to the idea of lifting the embargo. So it's the British appointed commissioner essentially arguing against her own government.
It was an interesting development, and one we'll be following next week, particularly as the foreign ministers gather in Dublin. I spent most of the last 2 days covering the economic debate, and that was quite interesting because of what didn't happen. We all thought they were going to come here and discuss this great austerity versus growth debate that had really sort of engendered a lot of heat since the Italian elections in particular. Was Europe going to have to change path on the austerity issue? And frankly, no debate actually happened on that. We had a long day yesterday on economic issues. It went to the night where the Eurozone leaders debated, and there was no resolution, no real change in policy. We did have an interesting change in tone, though. Mario Monti, in particular, the outgoing Italian prime minister, sort of cast a warning to his fellow leaders saying, look, I lost my election because the voters in Europe are turning against this. It takes too long for us to see the benefits of some of these economic reforms. We have to do something about it. There was a lot of warm words. I think, Josh, you were with Francois Hollande, in which he sort of praised that. We've heard Jose Manuel Barroso, the head of the European Commission, who also said some nice things about it. We had a very different message, once again, from Angela Merkel saying, really have to stay the course. Some of her allies in Finland and other sort of northern Eurozone countries, again, not particularly enthusiastic about changing course, to see any sort of short-term stimulus to try to get over this hump, even if growth is still a ways away. So that debate will probably carry on as well, which we'll be following very closely. So I guess we draw from a close here in Brussels. Until the next time, I hope you've enjoyed our coverage, and please join us again next time when ministers and prime ministers and presidents summit here in Brussels. Thanks again.